Hey guys and girls, Bored Now back with you, and on this video I return to Sunnydale and the world of Buffy the Vampire Slayer. So this is going to be my review of Season 2 Episode 7. The episode is called Lie to Me and it's written and directed by Joss Whedon. Before I get into the episode and talking about it, there's actually some pretty big Buffy news, especially for people in the UK, which was announced just this past week actually. I don't know if some of you might not have heard it, but the news is that from June, Buffy is going to be shown on Channel 4, or actually E4 to be precise. It's going to be shown weekly from, I think, June the 1st, which is very soon, next week I think, if not the week after. So yeah, that's pretty big news. First time it's been shown regularly on Channel 4 or on the Channel 4 channel. And the other side of that is then of course it will go on to their streaming service or their catch-up service, which is All 4. So you'll get the episodes. I think all the episodes will probably go up there at the same time, so all 7 seasons. So kind of giving you the option, if you want to watch it weekly, you can do. But obviously, as is the modern thing, they're all up there on the site if you want. And I think actually, particularly it being shown weekly on E4 I think that's the big news, because obviously something like Amazon Prime has all 7 seasons up on their site anyway. But I think E4 it tends to get high ratings. It tends to be a channel that's like more for sort of younger type viewers, so I guess 18 to 24, that sort of age range. I think a lot of their content is aimed at like the younger viewer. So I think that's really important here, because obviously that sort of person at that sort of age at the moment, let's face it, with all this other like TV that's out there nowadays, probably hasn't seen Buffy. Chances are they've heard of it because it is like a brand name, but a lot of those people in that age group now probably have not seen an episode of Buffy, or they might have seen the odd one. So it's a good opportunity, I think, to introduce Buffy to a whole new generation. So I think that's exciting news myself. And you can obviously let me know your thoughts on it in the comments below. But as far as from what I hear and the report this week, yeah, June the 1st it's meant to start. So weekly episodes on E4, and I'm assuming anyway then the whole 7 seasons will go up on All 4, the streaming service for Channel 4. So yeah, good news I think. So you can let me know your thoughts on that in the comments. So I'm going to get into talking about this episode. Sorry it's been a while since the last episode. It's been about a month. I'll try and make these more regular. So this is a pretty big episode thematic wise, and I think you can really tell it is a Whedon type episode. It really gets into some of the mythology of the show. It gets more into like the cult of the vampire. And we get some pretty big character stuff in the episode as well. But it's also, I think, classic Whedon in the way he likes to try and weave like philosophy and ideas into like this sort of like more fast-paced sort of teen type show. So it's quite... I don't think it's like top drawer Whedon, but it's certainly one of those early big Whedon episodes that's kind of a good setup for probably future episodes that he directs and writes. But I think at this stage in the show it's certainly one that stands out. So the plot is then an old like high school friend of Buffy who she knew in the at her previous high school, Floyd, played by Jason Barr. He comes to visit, or he comes to town, and he surprises Buffy, and he's actually now going to Sunnydale High. And this is full spoilers anyway, but Buffy later finds out then her old friend Floyd, he knows about her being the Slayer somehow. And so the whole twist is that not only does he know, but he's actually plotting against Buffy. His ultimate plan is to become a vampire himself, to experience that, and there's a development later on which reveals actually why he wants to become a vampire. But again, I think it gets into the whole thing of this desire to want to live forever, and so it really plays with that sort of idea, and I think that's one of the fun things about Buffy as a show, that it actually explores these ideas, and actually, if there were vampires in the world, would it actually appeal, the idea of being one, to like your average sort of teen? So I think this definitely explores that. So Floyd hatches this whole plan where there's an underground sort of club where he and other potential vampires go and they hang out, and he's kind of stringing these other characters along because they think he's kind of in it with them, but in reality he's just setting them up for a fall, whereas he's going to take the opportunity to become a vampire and pretty much leave them to the wolves, because he has this plan where he's going to like lure Buffy into like this club, and then he makes a deal with Spike, and the deal is that basically if you turn me into a vampire, you can have the Slayer. That's the whole thing. So it's quite a juicy sort of setup. And yeah, overall, I really like this episode. It's really strong. There's some great dialogue, as you would expect from Whedon. There's some, as I said, the thematic stuff is really intriguing, which I'll talk more about. Some great character moments, and it does go to some dark places as well later in the episode. As I said, I don't think it's top drawer Whedon, and I'm not sure it's necessarily the best episode of the show up to this point, but it's one that always stands out, and it's actually quite an easy rewatch. It's an episode I watched a fair bit. I suppose that the one main weakness is Jason Barr now, or Burr, I'm not sure how you say it, but a lot of people, I think he's mostly known for Roswell, which obviously aired a couple of years after this, 2 or 3 years that got its debut. He was obviously the I guess the second lead on that. I guess him and the Sherry Appleby character were the 2 leads, but that's what he's best known for, and he is a very wooden actor. I mean, he shows up in quite a few teen type shows or films, but yeah, he is very wooden, and he's kind of well cast here. I think in Roswell, obviously, he gets away with it because the whole thing is he's an alien, and he's certainly got the look. You can see why he would be very like endearing, and kind of, he has, striking looks and what have you. But as an actor, he's really not very good. So I think probably his performance is the main weakness of this episode, and I think it becomes less of a problem later on in the episode maybe, but certainly at first, and I think that is the main drawback. But again, I think just dealing with the fact that Buffy is at this still very vulnerable age, still only 16, so really still learning about the world, and the whole thing lied to me, like the theme of the episode, where I think there's this desire at that age for the world to be more simple, for them to be, as she like mentions at one point, to be divided into good and bad, quite simple, and for ultimately good to win, there to be like hope, and obviously she has to be taught that that's not the case, and I think she learns a big lesson in this. But I think the episode also does a great job of selling us on the character and why this is such a good person, and why Buffy does give the world hope and does give Sunnydale hope, and we see that kind of in the later scenes with Floyd. But yeah, the whole theme of lying to me and this idea of being truthful, and I guess just unpacking that a bit, is it healthy to like tell the truth all the time, and is there like a reason why the world is sort of like this, where sometimes you have to like distort the truth or tell little lies, I guess. But yeah, this partly follows like Halloween quite nicely, because in that Buffy like first kind of is introduced to the idea of women from like Angel's time, when he was originally like young and on this earth, and in this she's introduced to Drusilla, because she actually sees Angel with him at the beginning, and it's quite a creepy scene actually, because like the opening scene is that this young boy is out just wandering without a parent. He's in like the playground, and Drusilla comes up to him and is kind of trying to like kind of just get close to him, and kind of not let on that she's a crazy sort of vampire, and obviously he's quite wide-eyed, and this actually serves as quite a nice thematic link for the rest of the episode, because you've obviously got this wide-eyed innocent young boy who has no idea about vampires, and no idea that this woman who seems to be quite nice to him is actually he's potential food for her. He's a target. And so Angel then shows up, and we find out that then Angel knows Drew, that they have a history, and it's at this point where Buffy sees that like them together, and there's sort of a flirtation here, but obviously Buffy doesn't know what's going on. He thinks, well, who is this strange woman talking to Angel? Do they have a past? That kind of thing, and it becomes a whole thing in the episode, a whole tension where, even though Buffy I think knows that probably there's nothing going on, nothing romantic going on, I think she's just upset at the thought that then she's not being told the truth, or she's being kept in the dark. And that's a big thing in this episode, the idea of Buffy as a teenager just being kept in the dark by adults and not tell the truth. So there's obviously frustration with if Giles does it, if her mother does it, just adults in general. So that all plays quite nicely, but it gets more into like the mythology of the history of the vampires and of Angel's past as well. His history with Drew, the fact that he sired her. So I guess because it's a Whedon episode, then it's really getting into those things, and it's an important episode looking back, because it does set up more of this stuff, which is important. But I sort of think really of Whedon episodes as quite like tight sort of little essays, where it does set something up, a theme up at the start, and then it plays with those ideas, and by the end you do have quite a nice sort of resolution. Not that it's too clean cut or just too easy, but you do have like a final point that says this is what we've been building to. So it's nicely and sharply sort of done, and it makes you think without kind of smacking you over the head with it. But it becomes a whole trust issue in this episode between Buffy and Angel, because when Angel meets like this new guy Floyd at the Bronze, he just feels that something's up with the guy, something a bit suspicious about him randomly like moving from high school, showing up. And I think it's just instinct with Angel. He actually doesn't have that much to go on, and part of it is jealousy. They're definitely getting into that whole area, because I think this is a guy who Buffy... I don't think they ever went out, but Buffy does mention how she pined over him and was attracted to him. So there's kind of like playful sort of banter there, and that's actually one of the funniest scenes in the episode. And this is a great example of what a great comedic actress Alison Hannigan is, because Buffy like goes on this whole monologue about like the summer pining over Floyd, and she does this whole thing about I just listened to that record for hours, and it's something like You Touch Me or something like that. It's not a record I've heard of, but no prizes for guessing what it's about. And then there's this whole thing where the conversation moves on, and then it cuts to the end of the scene, and Willow's like, oh, that's what that record's about. And just the timing of the delivery, and then you get the cut to like the scene at the Bronze where they're all hanging out. It's just so great. I absolutely love Alison Hannigan as Willow. But yeah, there's the scene at the Bronze where Willow's and Buffy and obviously Floyd are hanging out, and Floyd's like revealing all these like different secrets from their time together at Emery High. And that's when Angel comes in, and there's this whole thing where he suspects her. So to get back to my point, he later goes to Willow and says, can you check this guy out? I just think there's something fishy about him. And that's a really adorable scene as well, because Willow's like in her bedroom and she's obviously ready for bed, and she's got like these adorable, like, I think they're like rabbit slippers on, which I always notice whenever it goes to that scene. It's Alison Hannigan, adorable. But yeah, I do actually like this plot with Angel going to Willow, because obviously he doesn't want to cause alarm with Buffy, and he probably feels if he raised it with her, she probably wouldn't believe him and say, hey, you're jealous, get out of here. So I like that he goes to Willow, because it leads to this whole plot with Willow, Xander and Angel actually hanging out and working together to try and find this guy out. What's going on. And at first there is something suspicious, because Willow sees like his school records, and she's on the Sunnydale like school database, and she realizes his records wasn't transferred from his previous school, so that's a bit weird. And they check him out more, and that's when they get this lead, and they go to the whole nightclub, and there's some great stuff in the club actually, because they're watching like classic cult like vampire type movies. They're like quoting lines, and they're dressed in a particular way. And I do like this whole part of the episode, because these characters are sort of very naive and open eyes, which connects nicely through, because obviously it started off with the young boy which Drew was targeting. But it is definitely a strength of Buffy that then it explores these things, and it actually makes these characters quite sympathetic, because they're actually being set up as prey by Floyd and by Spike. And of course, one of them is, as she's called here, Chanterelle, who actually has a bit of a recurring role, not just in Buffy, but also Angel. She plays one of the potential vampires who goes to this club regularly and wants to become a vampire. So yeah, the actress, I think it's Julia Lee, who we do see at least a few more times. At least one more time in Buffy, and then she, spoilers a little bit, but she does appear on Angel as well, so you've got that to look forward to. So she has an interesting, like, I guess, small arc, but yeah, she's one of the characters in this club. And there's a lot of fun stuff in the club, because there's the scene where Angel is like being all like suspicious and cynical about these like wannabe vampires, because he's very blunt with Chanterelle, and then he has this line about that they have no idea what being a vampire is, and he just has this line about you know, the way they dress, that they think they know how vampires dress. It's just a whole cliche. And then actually, like, this guy walks by and he's in the exact same outfit as actual, which is great. It's just one of those sharp visual sort of gags. Really great stuff. Really good world building, and basically the whole reveal is obviously Buffy finds out that Floyd knows. And this kind of raises alarm bells a little bit with Giles, like, oh, you just telling anybody? And he's like, well, he sort of figured it out. And so it becomes this whole thing. And I think Floyd, some of his best stuff in the episode is where he's almost like monologuing, like in Scream sort of thing, and this is sort of very like self-aware, like parody stuff where he's talking, where he goes to see Spike, and I like actually again some entertaining Spike stuff because he's like, "Hello, security, do you just let anybody in this place?" It's such a Spike sort of line. But anyway, Floyd does this whole monologue about, come on, because Spike immediately is just like gonna kill him without like listening to him. So Floyd's like, come on, you've got to say it at least once, and it's the line, you know, then I'll give you like 20 seconds or whatever to live, or I can't remember what he says exactly, but it's one of those where he's like referencing what they might say in a movie, what a villain might say. So stuff like that I kind of get into, but it sort of reminds me a little bit of Scream, the way he kind of monologues and he's being very kind of self-aware. But the dark part of the episode is then obviously Floyd kind of tricks her into going to this club, and there's this whole like speech where Buffy's trying to save everyone and try and get them out, and Floyd reveals then he has brain cancer, and it's really shocking obviously to Buffy, and he does this whole grand speech where he's very self-pitying, saying I'm sorry if the thought of brain cancer scares you, but being dead, being a vampire can't be any worse than this. And what I like about the scene actually is that, well, two reasons. I mean, it's one of the great Buffy speeches, first of all, maybe from any episode, but just unpacking it, I like the fact that she puts it to Floyd, then actually being a vampire, it's not the same as being alive, as being yourself now. And I think that's before he like pulls the twist out, then he's dying from brain cancer. But there's actually some logic to what Buffy says. It's not the same as like living a regular human life. You know, like a demon takes up space in your head and takes over your body, and it might look like you, but it's not you, basically. And the other stuff is then she makes it very much about choice, and it's a great moment, great acting from Sarah Michelle Gellar again, because she gets across how shocked and sad Buffy is, and that she does have empathy for Floyd, but also she doesn't justify his actions. She's still very determined and just knows then what he's doing is wrong. It's not right to set these people up for a fall and just to let them be killed mercilessly just because you have this dream of being a vampire and what you're going through. And it's that great line which I think gets quoted a lot. This is classic reading, and she just says, you have a choice. It might not be a good choice, but it's a choice. And that goes to the whole nature of some of the themes of Buffy, where it's about making choices and making the best of life. And this idea of, are you on a path, or can you have free will? Can you make choices? But I think this episode is largely about just facing up to like the realities of life, and about making the best of it and making the best choices when the situation isn't sort of ideal. But It's a powerful scene. It's really well done. Great, as I said, great delivery from Sarah Michelle Gellar on the lines. And eventually what happens is when Drew and Spike show up, Buffy kind of like sort of blackmails Spike because she gets to Drew and threatens her, and that's sort of Spike's Achilles in heel actually. So he actually lets the rest go at that point, and it becomes this whole thing where he has to keep his end of the promise, even though, and they get locked inside because it's like this whole like it's something like a war bunker or a big like airtight sort of room. So obviously, Spike's really annoyed at Floyd, and that's quite entertaining. But he sort of has to keep up his end of the bargain, so he actually does sire Floyd, and he becomes a vampire, and that's where we get the end scene where Buffy and Giles are at his graveyard, and they're just like waiting for him to rise so that she can do the hard thing, which is kill him. So again, then they end with that scene is a great example of her making hard life decisions and having to face up to it because she kills him when he rises. And again, great dialogue, great speeches where she's like, does life get easy? You know, kind of lie to me, she says, which title of the episode. And Giles does this great sort of fanciful speech. Oh yeah, the good guys always win. They're dressed in white with, you know, hats and stuff, and the bad guys dressed in black stuff, and we always defeat them, so and so. And she's like, lie to me. And it's just ironic because she asked him to anyway. But it's a great end scene. As I said, it's like the ending of an essay. It's like, boom, this is what we've been talking about. This sums everything up. So it's a strong episode. Another little like funny comedy moment I like in it is actually Giles and Jenny where they're going on like a date. And at one point Buffy has to call him away for something. And there's this whole thing because she took him monster trucking, which is really funny, and just Giles like sort of like British like reaction to that. What an oddball thing to do on a date. And I think this is why Jenny and Giles are actually such a good couple, because I think she compliments him. I think there's enough of a connection, there's enough where they probably would share some interest, but at the same time she is very different as well. She's into like more youthful things or just slightly more alternative things, because I think sometimes if you have too much in common with someone, it can be a bit of a problem. So they are a great couple. I think that scene is one of the reasons. But yeah, just his reaction to the idea of going monster trucking on a date is just great stuff. But it's a really, really solid, tight episode. I enjoy it a lot. So that's Lie to Me, and I'll give it a 7.5 out of 10. I'm not sure I can quite go up to like 8 out of 10 or outstanding. So I'll give it 7.5. So yeah, that's Lie to Me. And of course I ranked these as I go along. And for Lie to Me, it was a tough choice. I wanted to put it quite high, and it is quite high. But in the end I went for number 4. It's number 4 on the overall list. And that's just behind Prophecy Girl, because I think overall Prophecy Girl still has a greater emotional impact, and it was such a great season finale. So I think overall that episode maybe grabs me a bit more, but it's certainly close to that, and it goes in just ahead of When She Was Bad. I think it's definitely a better episode than that overall, and the top 2 are still Halloween and School Hard at the top. So there you have it. Lie to Me, strong episode, goes in at number 4 on the list overall, and I'll keep the list going as I go through the episodes, updating it, and you can find that in the comments below in the description. But thanks for listening to this review. I'll be back soon with the next episode. That's episode 8 of season 2. It is called The Dark Age. So if you want to watch that episode ahead of me reviewing it, then that would be great. You can comment, but also comment on this. What do you think of Lie to Me as an episode? Where would you put it overall at this point on the list? And also let me know what you think of the news about Buffy coming to the UK, coming to E4. But thanks for listening. I'll see you guys again soon. Goodbye.